really important that you understand and believe it. So there's holes in here. So if water goes through, it should come out the bottom. So we took the pan and put it over top of that, and then flipped it up. And so then that's what you see here of our different soil pans. Soil is really important for all of our ecosystem services of infiltrating the rain. I mean, when you think about the water cycle, part of that, when the rain comes down, is supposed to go in the ground, into our groundwater, come out at the streams, be evaporated, come back up for rain and go down. Some of it might run off, but part of being a healthy ecosystem is that it should infiltrate through the ground and into our groundwater. So I'll tell you about these places that we took these from. These are all within a mile of here is where we got our samples. So this one is from a prairie that was established about 7 years ago, that we put that cutter on and cut it out, cut it off, and put it in here. So there's some grasses in here, a lot of legumes, a lot of good cover. It hasn't been disturbed for a long time. This is yard grass. On the other side of the light pole, there's a rectangle missing because we took it out from this. It's just grass that gets mowed all the time. Our middle one is from the field just up the hill. We did have to cut down some of our corn stalks. They were standing up, but in order to get the cutter to go on there, we had to whack them off, but we tried not to disturb the soil when we did that. But having vertical residue is good for snow, because we're going to catch a little more snow when we have, it's like mini snow fence up in the field. You want to catch and harvest that rain. Then we have some vertical tillage that you can see that there's bean residue on there, and it got vertical tilled. So just a turbo till, or just a one-pass thing. Everybody says that. So we've cut up the residue and then we have incorporated it. And then our conventional, that it gets tilled up once or twice a year before it gets planted. So just want to show you that that's what we have, and I'll get the water started, I guess.
One question, Tonya.
Yes, Jerry.
That conventional what's the history? Chisel plow? Any history?
I don't know exactly history, but it's from between here and Monticello, on the bottoms, like right off on the north side of C. So because it's so flat, very likely had a decent amount of tillage done to it. I can't say what kind of tillage, but I mean, that's what it pretty much looks like out there. Sure. Since nobody usually likes to stand out in the rain when it's raining, this is a great model so that everybody can see what's happening when it's raining on our soils and our landscape. So these pans are set up on a little bit of a slope so that once enough water gets on, and if there's any runoff, that it will come. And it's got these trays here that will deliver the water to the front buckets. And then these plastic tops so that you don't get any of the extra rainfall, essentially, to drop in there. If you want to come closer, you can. You can kind of see that we're getting some runoff already. Are you anybody noticing on this vertical tillage one that we're getting some runoff? Our conventional there is going to start. We must not have had the pan quite filled enough that it's even. But the bigger thing to look at is the back of this on the panel. Do you see how the soil is splashing?
What would you consider this rainfall amount?
The intensity?
Is it inch now or?
Well, we can shut it off when we get to an inch.
Okay.
So we're trying to, simulate that we can. So we've got the rain gauges set up to try to show that.
How much rain we actually?
Yeah, that we're trying to make it be even if we can. So this tilled one doesn't have a lot of stability in it. That rain gauge wants to tip over on us, but we want to try to show that it should be getting the same amount everywhere because the oscillator is turning after the pans, that there's not anything that's getting an extra amount essentially. So protecting our soil is really important so we don't get that splashing. Yeah. There you go. So this is a picture of a splash of water on bare soil. It's like an explosion is going off. It's a lot of intensity for bare soil to try to handle. So that's why we're seeing a lot of the soil splashing on the back, is because it's splashing. And so if there's nothing to protect the soil, our thing tipped over. Oh, okay.
Stand and hold it.
I think we're pretty close, Tess, if we want to. Yeah.
I'd say that rainfall's like some of them that we had this spring where it's just, like they say, it's raining like a cow pissing on a flat rock. So it comes down pretty fast.
So can I ask how much you got in that rain gauge?
Yep, let's
Not
look.
the one you tipped over.
Let's see how close they are. Well, the one that tipped over is only at like 1.1 and the other one is at 1.5 almost. So it was a pretty good intensity of rain that we got. So when I was a kid, I thought Dad was tilling the soil to fluff it up so that the rain would be able to go into the soil easier. That is not true. That doesn't happen because if y'all just peek out into the sun a little bit, you can see what that rain has done to the soil is that there's no place for the water to infiltrate. There's still water sitting on the front of this pan. Just because we have a little lip on it, it's not going through. It should have just gone through. That was loose soil. On our vertical tillage, we have about the same kind of sheen to it. If we leave this sit, the rain or the sun is going to bake this, and then we have crusting. And then what do people want to do to fix crusting? More tillage. So it's kind of a vicious cycle that we get into when we don't have healthy soil in place. So, Jenna, can you help me with this? So we didn't have much for runoff. Oh, we've got some in the yard. A little for the no-till, quite a bit. So for the conventional tillage, that's our runoff, and our vertical tillage. I'd say the conventional is just a tick darker, maybe. So where does that sediment go? Yeah, or Tectonica, or wherever. Do they need our sediment? Likely not. And with the sediment is nutrients. A lot of nutrients are tied up in our sediment. Okay, Jenna. So we said that there were holes in these pans. So let's see how much water went through or infiltrated. So you can see, let's set the infiltrated ones down in the front. This is our yard. Okay, so this one was the prairie, then our yard grass, our no-till, our vertical tillage, and our conventional till. I didn't fluff it up. It didn't let it go through the soil. So we talk about healthy soil. The principles that we have are to keep it covered. So I would say that these, well, we could say maybe these four, that there's something on the soil. That's one of our soil health principles, is keeping it covered. To disturb it as least amount as possible. So this has not been disturbed for a while. The yard doesn't get disturbed very often. The no-till, well, this is no-till this year. It was maybe vertical till the year before, but it's in good shape because they're doing it only as infrequently as they need. The vertical tillage annually, it's getting, that whole soil surface is being disturbed every year. And the conventional tillage, there's no residue on the surface to help protect that soil from the splash. So we want to keep it covered. We want to disturb it as least amount as possible. We want to have living roots in our soil to help, because that's where our water is going to go down through, is through our old root channels or old worm channels. And we want to have diversity in our system. So you could definitely say that this prairie, there's not the same of every plant here, that it's a variety of things. Yard grass, so there's a dandelion, maybe a little clover, but it's mostly Kentucky bluegrass, little stuff. The corn and beans, it's getting a little bit of diversity, but it's not maybe as diverse as the highest functioning system that it could be. But farmers have to live with reality of making a living, and so that's not bad of having corn and beans. The vertical tillage with corn and beans, still two kinds of crops, and the tillage. So these other the last three are just corn and beans. So they're not seeing like wheat in the rotation, maybe not a cover crop. So there's room for improvement for those. But when we're talking about harvesting the rain, I would say the no-till is doing pretty darn good. We also can extend this to flood protection. If everybody can infiltrate as much as you can up on the hillsides, then there's not as much runoff to flood other people or communities downstream. So we want to try to get people or farmers to implement these better practices. Ideally, if we could have living perennial cover, that'd be awesome. So thinking pasturing, things like that, that's on the better side of keeping the cover and being able to infiltrate as much rain and that as we can.
So if you did a rye cover crop, single crop, you know, for spring and it rained, would it be like the prairie, or?
I would think you would be pretty close to this end if you had some kind of living crop there to help protect it. Yeah. And we had some untimely rains.
Yeah,
I mean,
seems really bad.
now we're getting the crops to canopy. So the living crops are helping give our cover. But from February, since we really didn't have much winter, till now, that soil has been exposed. If it didn't have last year's crop residue on it, that it's, you know, open to the rain and the sun and the wind, Ray Archuleta says that our soils are naked, hungry, and running a fever because we don't have any protection on them. We're not treating them the best that we can with that. So any other questions? Yes, Jerry?
Can you talk to a little bit about air infiltration? Not only water, but air infiltration. The far end,
Yeah.
what does air do?
So our plants need oxygen to grow. They're bringing it in through the plant leaves, our solar panels essentially, but also the roots need oxygen. And so if we have sealed off the surface that there's no air exchange, we might as well just have it be underwater, be flooded. Because underwater plants drown out, right? That they don't get the air that they need. Even if the plants are standing up, they suffocate because of their roots. They need that oxygen. The biology suffocates, or it's because our microbiology in the soil needs oxygen to live and do their job of breaking down residue and organic matter to convert to nutrients and that. And so when they can't live, then life kind of stops, and so there's no exchange. Is that good?
Yeah, it's just that the natural prairie or the living cover has far greater air exchange, so the biology then is working and retrieving nutrients, bringing it to the plant, and so on and so forth. The system is working. We're missing that part of the system in the far left.
For sure. Yep.
Just like everybody's the soybeans, you know, were yellow for a long time because it was wet all the time. Well, that bacteria that makes nitrogen for them has to have air to do it. And if it's sitting in the water, it can't. So now it's finally dried out, and now the beans finally got color to them. Before they were pale and looked crappy, now they can start making nitrogen. But when they're sitting in the water, they can't.
Or sealed over.
Or sealed over, there's no air there for them to do their job.
Right.
They're suffocating.
Yep.
And the worms too. The worms in there.
Yep.
Yeah. They come to the surface to get their organic matter, and they plug their holes with it. So if there's any other questions on the Rainfall simulator, I'm going to move on to.
Are you gonna flip them? The trays?
Good.
You talk about this.
Okay, I can help you. Flipping? Well,
And you talk.
let's
Let's
just do
Tilled is easy.
let's do tilled and no till.
and no tilt.
Yeah.
Where do you want to put that?
Put them right out
Right.
front.
So we were wondering if the water infiltrated, and we saw that it didn't really. you can see on this tilled field, this is still as dry as I put it in there. And then our no-till field, that's wet on that whole surface. So everywhere in there, it was able to infiltrate. And you can see the holes where the worms or old root channels where that water was able to come through. This one, for the conventional till, we have it wet in this corner. That might be where it came through. That it maybe found a place where there were some good air pockets, so the air could come out and the water could go down through. So in that corner it did, but not uniformly through that. And after an inch or more of rain, if I'm digging down, I'm finding it maybe it made an inch in where that was dry on the bottom. We need to be able to capture every bit of rain we get, especially last year when we were hurting for rain. Anytime it rained or we had fog, we wanted to try to capture and get that moisture in the ground to help our plants, help the biology do its job. It's semi-aquatic, is that right, Jerry? That a lot of our soil biology needs moisture to move around and to do its job. So water is integral for keeping our soil healthy.
Basically, the blood of the soil is the water.
So this is going to be a slake test to show. So this one piece was from the no-till, and this piece was from the tilled field. And so I'm putting them in water to see how that raindrop. Can I put that behind there? To show how they hold up in water. I mean, we kind of saw how it happens when it gets splashed, but is it holding up? Is it staying together? This is our conventional till. This is our no-till soil. So some of the biology in the soil feeds on the root exudates. So the sugars that the plants give off, and they glue aggregates together. And so those roots are making soil healthier. And that glomalin helps glue the particles together. So this no-till has kind of been glued together. It's slaking some, but not as bad as this one that has been tilled every year, where there's nothing left to help hold it together. So thinking about that, like driving on the field, this one you're not going to be able to get into as quickly as you would a no-till field because it doesn't have any stability. The no-till has air in it, so when it's shown, or when water wants to get in, the air comes out and the water can go in without busting it apart. Where this one, the one that's been tilled, there's no air. That it has to blow apart the soil particles in order to moisturize or get wet. So this is showing that we need our soil to be healthy, to be resilient to erosion if we can. And then this one is going to be a slump test. So same thing. Let's see if this flip. I'm just going to I want to show how they take on water, and then after I think they've taken on enough water, we're going to dump them out and see how they hold up. So that tilled one, still in my right hand, is sucking up the water. For the no-till, it's still about at the same level as the water line in the cup. Just to keep things straight. So this is the till, this is the no-till. Show how it's going to hold up to trafficking, to if you have cattle in the fields, if it's good healthy soil or not. So this has structure, the no-till, so it's still maintaining its shape. Where I would venture to say that the the conventional till really doesn't have any structure left to it, that it's been beaten too hard. Come back in an hour after lunch? Yeah, okay. Any questions? Comments?
Until 2 took about 4 minutes.
Give or take?
Gone, right?
Yeah.
The other one is
Still there. Yep. When this one is slaking off, it's in much bigger chunks. It's not into its, sense
You probably don't have the numbers, but for every pound of soil leaving, maybe Jake does how much phosphorus, so on and so forth, to equate this, a little bit to the phosphorus that ends up down in the hole.
depends on how high your phosphorus levels are,
I'll
probably.
make this statement. How many of you guys want your farm to be better for the next generation? You want your farm to get better soils, more productive? If you have erosion, you are going backwards. You cannot build soil and replace it faster than you're losing it. So the first thing to building good soil is to keep it from eroding. And to do that, you got to be in the no-till system, and then the next step is get the cover crops going, so you protect it in that March till this next crop covers it back up.
Prevent from detachment. So
Right.
this soil picture is the soil particles being detached from as an aggregate. Detached, transportation, and deposition are our erosion. So we want to prevent detachment. So you've got to protect the soil so it can't. So essentially, the mean old rain can't bust it up.
The other thing that's happening in that picture is there's a video out there, there's little air pockets in the water sitting on the surface. When they explode, they're sending up fungal spores and so on and so forth. This is doing it also, but them little aspirated pockets of air in this water surface, if you watch a video, there's a video out there, they'll explode later, and then that fungal spores will be sprayed up into the canopy of your beans or whatever. And that's part of the reason where if you have a cover, 9% of this doesn't happen. It stays down. You're not only erosion, but you're reducing the fungal
Pathogen
Pushing
exposure
up,
to your
pushing up.
plants. Just like in a garden, you probably cover the bottoms of your tomatoes, right? Like with straw or newspaper, because we don't want the blossom end rot or whatever other diseases that we can get from the soil. So if we're keeping the soil protected, it's not able to splash that fungal and whatnot up on the plants. And then that makes a difference for feed quality when you're doing, corn silage or whatever you're harvesting. If you have dirty plants, you're going to have dirty feed. You can keep it as clean as possible.
building soil. So I'm an agronomist and I test my own farm every 2 years. So I went back 6 years. I looked at my soil tests and I started doing cover crops 6 years ago. And I have raised my organic matter 0.5% in 6 years. So I don't have erosion, I'm doing covers, and my soil is getting better. So present the test so that you can see what you're doing. Now there's lots of programs out there. There's carbon programs. There's stuff through what is it called? TSP? No.
NRCS,
NRCS.
CSP,
Yep.
or
CSP. Yep. Conservation Stewardship Program. There's monies to help you get into this system if you're not into it already. I've had people jump cold turkey right in, and I would say it's probably better to step yourself into it a little bit at a time. Conversion from tillage to no-till takes 3 years probably to start seeing the benefits of the worms coming in and the erosion stopping and biology to get used to not being tilled. So you can't judge it on 1 year. If you have a year like last year, you got to really throw that one out because everybody's suffering from a low supply. It takes a little more water, I'd say, to make that work. Get your equipment right. You got one chance to do it right, so do it right. You can't have an old wore out piece of equipment trying to do no-till because that's the biggest job in the place.
The higher your organic matter, the more the water holding capacity of the soil and more nitrogen is available.
Yep, more productive it's going to be all around. Yep.
If someone wanted to try no-till, is there a place they can rent or borrow a no-till planter in Green County?
Can you rent a no-till drill from like Johnson Tractor or places that have that kind of stuff, or they'd rather say no, you buy it?
We keep telling you, county people, get us one. I've been pushing for 10 years.
I know.
There's enough of us around, part of our group or neighbors. There's a share of no-till drills around. Finder takes a little more work, but I don't run a new one. It's a 97, and I've put some different equipment on it, and it works just fine. Great. I know Dennis is running the same model as I am.
Mine's older than yours.
It's a little different the way he's got it set up, but it works. He's got
All the bells and whistles when they work.
a fancy one that they basically bought and then rebuilt it the way he wanted it. So,
The best thing you can do is befriend somebody. Befriend even two farmers that don't know exactly what they're doing. You get the real ideas off each other.
that's what this group is for.
Any one of us will help almost anybody. But befriend somebody that you can tell them your dirtiest dark secret and watch the water run away off your ground. You will learn together. And No-Till Farmer, Acres Magazine, there is so much shit on the internet. They really need to be yourself.
Yeah, no-till farmer, and if you don't like to read, you can go to YouTube and you can Google what we just did. It's there. There's planter setups there. There's, if you'd rather watch it and not read, you can do that too. Or instead of playing on Facebook, go to YouTube and watch a video for 5 minutes. Or if you're working in a shop, sometimes I'll do a podcast and I'll just have the speaker going and I'll be working on stuff and listening that way too. Or if you're planting and it's boring as heck, you can do it in your tractor instead of listening to the radio. You can learn while you work. There's today's world, the library is at your fingertips.